What's going on, guys? It's J Mass, and I'm back again with another dope New England adventure. And I'm currently here in the town of Old Town, Maine, located just north of the city of Bangor, Maine. And here in Old Town, we have a pretty small but interesting abandoned location, which you can already see directly behind me. This is what's known as the Civil Defense Bunker of Old Town, Maine. Now, this bunker was built in 1965, and it was used to house the local government in case of a nuclear attack. Now, you have to consider that this was built during the midst of the Cold War, which was a tense geopolitical conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. Now, luckily, this bunker was never used for its intended purposes, but it sat here for many decades until 1986, when it was temporarily converted into a low-security prison for female inmates. Now, that only lasted for 2 years until 1988, when this bunker was effectively abandoned and left to sit here and decay in the middle of the woods. Now, it became a local target for vandals and graffiti artists. You can even see directly behind me, this thing is covered in graffiti, and as a result, it is sealed shut. So I just want to say, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to, we're not going to be able to get inside this civil defense bunker. It's completely sealed shut, welded with sheet metal and concrete. There's no way to get in. But it's still a really interesting piece of Cold War era history and a fascinating abandoned location here in upstate Maine. I'm really excited to see what's going on here and check it out with you guys, and I will delve more into the history of this abandoned bunker. But before we do that, I just want to say I'm not going to be joined alone. I'm actually going to be with a longtime collaborator on this channel who you'll see right now. And once again, I am joined with Jesse Walsh, frequent collaborator here on the JMass YouTube channel. How are you doing today, Jesse?
I'm doing good. How about you, Jacob?
I'm doing pretty well, despite the incessant mosquitoes, as you guys can probably see on screen, and the rain that's coming down. But I'm still excited. We're going to check out this civil defense bunker here in Old Town, Maine. I'll tell you guys more about the history as we check it out. But as always, guys, my name is J Mass. If you love urban exploration, abandoned locations, traveling New England and beyond, I'm always doing that on the channel, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. I do want to give a major shout out to my channel members. You can see them all right here. You guys are awesome. And I'd love it if you too, viewer, became a member of the channel. You'd be supporting me and the channel directly, and you'd get your name in every video like these fine people. Or you can follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But we're going to get right into it and explore this abandoned bunker here in Old Town, Maine. Again, it is super buggy here. The rain's coming down. This is probably going to be a pretty brief video, but nonetheless, I'm excited to check this place out. I've known about it for quite some time. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll.
All right, guys, we're going to get started and explore this abandoned civil defense bunker here in Old Town, Maine. And you can already see this massive concrete column just sitting here in the middle of the woods. We are truly in the middle of the woods right now. This thing is just sitting here covered in trees and foliage. And again, as I alluded to, there's quite a bit of vandalism, a lot of graffiti. You can see you got Jake the dog from Adventure Time saying, "I didn't know it was wrong." Well, now you know, Jake, vandalism is wrong. But anyways, we're gonna step in here. This is where I filmed the introduction and just kind of check it out a bit. As I mentioned, this place is sealed shut. There's no way inside. So unfortunately, this isn't gonna be a very intuitive abandoned exploration. We're just gonna be checking out, you know, the entrance to the concrete bunker, which is this section here.
That's right. So if you look right here at this graffiti, there's an outline right here. You can see.
Yep.
This was the main entrance.
Exactly.
Clearly, you can tell that it is fully sealed off the concrete. They really don't want anybody going in there.
In fact, you can kind of see there's a difference in material being used. You have much darker, well, it looks like darker concrete over there, and then lighter concrete, which is what Jesse just said, where they sealed the entrance. So at one point, this would have been the way inside the bunker, now completely sealed shut with concrete. So even if you wanted to get in, it's just, there's no way to do it without heavy machinery. But yeah, this is the bunker. At one point, this was the entrance. You can actually even see some remnants of the fence right here, which, by the way, this fence actually dates back to the prison, which I'll get into. Speaking of which, yeah, let's cover the history. This place was built in 1965, and its primary purpose was to house local government officials in the event of a nuclear attack. Now, for those of you who know your history, that obviously never came. There never was a nuclear attack here in the United States, so luckily it was never used for its intended purpose. But this was the Cold War, and at the time, nobody knew it was going to happen. It was a very uncertain period of history. Again, we were in a very tense geopolitical situation with the Soviet Union. So to prevent any serious casualties from a nuclear incident, there were bunkers like these everywhere. This is just one here in Old Town, Maine for the local government. The other thing it housed was a low-frequency communication center, and there are actually 2 abandoned communications towers in the woods nearby we're going to check out.
Yeah.
Let's actually head to this side over here, see what we got going on this side.
Yeah, so if you'll take a look, you'll see that the bunker on the outside is a little bit symmetrical with 2 columns on each end.
Yep.
Now, before it was fully decommissioned, there actually was a little bit more stuff out here in front of this area. This was like the main entrance where you'd walk in, but
Right.
you got a picture as like, you know, a full bunker, or even as when it was a prison, there was fences all up around here.
Absolutely.
You know, so you couldn't just simply walk right up to the entrance. It was definitely at least some defense.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I actually will show an old photograph right now. This is what this place looked like. I believe this photograph dates back to the 80s. You can see what this looked like back when it was still in operation. But this is what it looks like today. Some abandoned hulking slabs of concrete. This one is another part of the bunker / prison right here. And that leads me into the history of the prison portion. As I mentioned, in 1986, it was converted into a low security prison for female inmates. But it only lasted for 2 years until 1988, when that was removed and the bunker / prison was officially abandoned. And ever since 1988, it's just been sitting here in the woods, again, unused, neglected. It was a very short time period, 1965 to 1988, but again, it's just sitting here nowadays, covered in graffiti. I have heard there are potential plans to convert this into something else to be used, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. For right now, it's just sitting here, overgrown, covered in graffiti, not too much else. So now we're going to be heading up top, you know, on top of the bunker. There are a couple things I want to show you guys up here. So we're going to head up the steep trail, see what's going on. But yeah, it's interesting to think that Old Town Maine had a massive bunker to be used for its local government officials in the event of a nuclear attack. You might be wondering what was inside the bunker. Well, even though we can't go inside, I was able to find pictures online of the inside. I'll also show some of those pictures here if you want to see, but you can see it was almost like an office inside. There were several different rooms, hallways, kitchen, bathrooms, office rooms. It was actually a quite extensive bunker, 8,000 square feet in total. And it was basically used so that the local government could still do their jobs, even when they were in the bunker in the event of an attack.
Yeah, that's right. So right now where we are currently on top of the bunker. The
Yep.
bunker obviously underground because...
Yep, the bunker is right underneath her feet.
Exactly, right. And as Jacob said, it was used so that the government could still work as, you know, there was an emergency going on. You can see right behind me, right here, there's actually a
Oh yeah.
some sort of lead pipe, maybe for water or just exhaust. And then we also got a few ventilation for most likely air conditioning and
Yep.
heat.
And this is actually what we're going to be checking out now. These are some of the ventilation shafts. You have to consider when you have a massive space underground, all of the air and oxygen and carbon dioxide needs to go somewhere. That's what these were for. These were the ventilation shafts to filter in and out fresh air. Again, these are also covered in graffiti, as you can see, but these are also sealed shut. Believe me, we checked. There's no way inside this bunker.
Yeah, if you take a look, especially like right here,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can clearly see like there was something here, mostly like a grate or something, but
Yep.
it's just been completely sealed.
Yep, completely sealed shut. On this one, you can kind of see a grate actually right here. So there's a grate left behind right there, but yeah, these ventilation shafts are almost entirely sealed shut, but this is where a lot of the fresh air and oxygen would come out and the carbon dioxide would be filtered out. Yeah, another
That's right.
sheet metal right here. So pretty cool to see these right here. But there is one last thing I want to show you guys at this civil defense bunker, and that of course are the low frequency communication towers. So we're gonna head there next. All right, Jesse and I are heading over to one of the 2 abandoned communications towers here in the woods.
That's right. So you gotta remember, during this time when it was first built in the 60s, long-range communication was still kind of like in its infancy. You know,
Right.
we had radio communication and Morse code and whatnot.
Radar too.
But there was no Wi-Fi. You know, no 5G LTE.
Right.
Satellites were still like a new thing, a new concept back then.
Yep.
You know, like we're talking about during the time when the moon race was going on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So if you take a look, because long-range communication was still, you know, young, they had to landline the communications directly into the bunker. So you'll see from the tower, they have the wires actually still here getting fed through this pipe going down into the bunker to keep it all safe. Yes. And they were prepared just in case something bad happens. Like if this is the primary one, they did have a backup one.
Yep. And we are going to get to that backup one shortly. It's actually just through the woods over there. But this is one of the two abandoned communications towers you can see right here. Pretty tall, towering through the trees. This was essentially their line of communication to the outside world as they were down below in the bunker. Again, keep in mind, this is in 1965, long before cell phones, long before the internet. This was their way to communicate with the outside world. They needed these communication towers so they could reach out to other people. And keep in mind, again, I keep mentioning this, but this is all in the event of an attack, which luckily never came. But if there was a nuclear attack and you had a local government, they needed a way to operate and to, you know, still go about their day-to-day operations and duties, even when there's a serious conflict going on. And that's what these were used for. So we're gonna head over to the last tower right now. Just gonna keep this one brief, but I did want to show you the other communications tower right here. This is actually the closest one to the bunker, or at least the entrance of the bunker. Very similar to the one we just saw, and Jesse already described to you how these worked, but you can see another bunker right here, towering into the trees. In fact, when we first came here, we couldn't see it because it almost blended in with the trees. Pretty cool to see right here. Yet another communications bunker. I believe this is, I don't know if this is the main one or the backup one, but there are two of them total.
Yeah. True. And this one you can see, at least for this one, it took the wires down. Maybe they were never even up.
That's true. No wires in this one. Yeah, wires are missing, but yeah, just another tower right here. All right, guys, we are going to be heading out shortly, so I just want to show you one final view of the civil defense bunker here in Old Town. You can see both of these concrete columns in one shot right here. Pretty interesting to see. Again, this at one point was the entrance to the bunker, the main entrance at least, and then later on the prison in the 80s. So I just want to show you one last time before we head out. As I mentioned, you know, this is a spot that I've known about for quite some time, but it's a pretty small location. And again, you can't get inside it. So I did just want to tell you about the history and show you the concrete structure itself, but sadly, not much more than that. As much as I'd love to get in here and check out all the rooms and office spaces, there is no way in. But again, it's a cool piece of history, a fascinating look back into the Cold War era and its impact on modern life in the United States. I mean, people lived their day-to-day lives in fear of nuclear attack. They really had no idea what to expect. And it's easy for someone my age to be like, oh, these guys were too worried because I didn't live during that time. But realistically speaking, they didn't know what was going to happen. It was a serious period of uncertainty. And that's what these bunkers were for, to aid in the event of an attack, to give people some sense of protection and normalcy. But it's really cool to see it decaying here in the middle of the woods. We're actually not too far from a rail trail, so as you're walking the rail trail, you might catch a glimpse of this thing deep in the woods here in Old Town. But again, super cool piece of history. Hey, thank you guys for joining me. I've been J-Mass as always, and this has been another dope New England adventure. And today we checked out the abandoned civil defense bunker here in Old Town, Maine, a really fascinating relic of the Cold War, built in 1965, used to house local government officials. Then in 1986, it was used as a low-security prison for female inmates until 1988, when it was officially abandoned. Now, one thing I neglected to mention, between the 1990s and 2000s, there was a lot of serious vandalism that happened here. A lot of stuff that was inside the bunker was stolen. I also think there was an arson attack here. So there was a lot of serious vandalism here, and that's what ultimately led to the bunker being sealed shut, I believe in the late 2000s or early 2010s. Sometime around that period, it was officially sealed shut, and there's no way to get in there anymore. But for the longest time, a lot of local urbexers, graffiti artists, and of course, vandals accessed this place. But still, it's a fascinating piece of Cold War era history and Maine history. So yeah, that was the civil defense bunker here in Old Town, Maine. I've been J-Mass as always, and shout out to Jesse for joining me on this one. What'd you think about it? Pretty cool.
It's really cool, yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad that we weren't able to go inside, but I mean, it happens, right?
That happens. It was cool to see. Small spot, but a cool spot nonetheless. But yeah, thank you, Jesse, for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been J-Mass as always. Again, if you guys love urban exploration, check out abandoned sites, traveling New England and beyond. I'm always doing that on the channel, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. Want to give a major shout out to all my channel members one more time. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate your support, and I'd love it if you too, viewer of this video, if you supported me as well. And again, if you want to follow me on Instagram, at JMassOfficial, that's at JMassOfficial. Now we're going to head out. The mosquitoes are ridiculous right now. We're getting bit every 5 seconds. So catch you guys on the next one. See you later.
Thanks for watching.